We're about a year out until we get season 3 of Interview with the Vampires, so I'm thinking right now, what's a better thing to do than to make videos about specific characters from the series? Because I gotta be honest, I think I have to apologize a little bit about how much attention and love I continuously give Lestat and Louis, Jacob Anderson and Sam Reed. I absolutely glaze these guys because of how much of a good job they do. And it's deserved. I mean, Sam Reed better win that award that he's up for, and Jacob Anderson got absolutely robbed for everything else. But the thing is, I feel like since I gravitate so much to those two characters, I feel like I'm missing the big picture. I don't talk about Daniel, Armand, Claudia, not enough. And so what's a better way to talk about characters that are just forgotten or characters that are treated unjustly than talking about the character that is probably the most tragic when looking at Interview with a Vampire as a whole? Well, I mean that in a way where I'm mostly going to be talking about the TV show, but I am going to be touching on subjects like the book and the comic book series and also the movie, but not going further than the initial Interview with a Vampire book. Sure, there might be a character a few books down that is like so-and-so, got the worst kind of life possible, but I'm only focusing on the first book. Because in it, we have a character whose entire existence we follow, and not once do they really have a moment of levity. They suffer through it all by the hands of the two characters that I say that I love so much, and by so many more. I'm talking about the vampire Claudia, the woman trapped in the body of a little girl. Hi y'all, I'm Randy, and like y'all, I'm devoid of content right now when it comes to Interview with the Vampire stuff, so why not make my own again? And before we start off, you might already be thinking to yourself that every single character in Interview with the Vampire is already a contender to be the most tragic character, and you're not wrong there. Everyone has tragedy in their lives, whether it be from Lestat's childhood, whether it be with Louis losing his brother, and just being in this world that is completely in like disarray. You can make the case for practically everyone. But the reason why I specifically chose Claudia is because I feel like you can look back to the character's inception and see exactly where tragedy starts. Because when Anne Rice was writing Interview with the Vampire for the first time, she just underwent one of the most hardcore, terrible things that could ever happen to any human being. She lost her daughter, something that is incredibly traumatic for anyone. And she lost her daughter at such a young age. How that's gonna influence someone when it comes to their writing. And now, Anne Rice, as an author, has gone on record to say that she never really gave too much thought on the world of Interview with the Vampire. She said that she didn't even realize that she was writing a gay relationship when she was making Louis and Lestat. But something that she did have in the back of her mind was that Louis was a stand-in for her. I mean, several times does she go on to say that she's proud to be the only woman ever to be played by Brad Pitt, an accomplishment that I believe everyone would really relish in. And I believe that this is something that also spreads to Claudia, as she might not have intended Claudia to be her own daughter that she had in real life. It ended up being that way. Because when you have emotions that powerful, when you undergo a loss that terrible, well, I feel like that emotion that you have, it can't be just contained inside of you. She unleashed it in her writing by writing parents that are grieving over their daughter who they feel like they failed. Louis and Lestat obviously have this shared trauma between them because they brought this woman, they brought this girl into the world of vampires and they couldn't keep her safe. Something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. And I'm pretty sure at the time of writing it, Anne Rice felt the same way. This was something that she felt at the time that was incredibly hard to overcome. Claudia, in my eyes, is Anne Rice's daughter. And with that, I guess we can start talking about the series. Because our introduction to Claudia is as a child. An innocent child that is just caught in circumstance. The cause for her misery is always Louis. In the comics, books, movie, Louis bites her and leaves her at death's door. Once Lestat walks in and makes fun of Louis, he decides, hey, since Louis couldn't go through with eating this child, I'm gonna turn her into Louis's daughter. What better way to keep him under my thumb by making us parents to this girl? It's malicious, it's a trap, it's the kind of thing that a couple's gonna do when they're afraid of breaking up. They have a kid because they think that that can save the relationship without knowing that that is gonna inadvertently dissatisfy everyone included in that relationship. Well, in the TV show is portrayed in a very different light. Louis is at fault in a different way because he causes this riot where everyone starts to burn down this section of New Orleans, and Louis comes in saving the day as he barges through the door in this fire to save and find Claudia, someone who he feels personally responsible for getting into this situation, for leaving on death's door. And instead of Lestat finding them laughing his ass off and just mocking Louis for not being able to commit to the bit of being a vampire, Louis brings her over to Lestat and begs him to turn her because, well, this is one of his last lingering attachments to humanity, and he doesn't want her to die. Without her, he feels like he would be nothing. And we get two perspectives on this transformation, the second of which being the more real of the two, with Louis coming in, holding Claudia's hand as he drags her across the floor towards Lestat as he's crying, begging for him to turn her. And Lestat just looks at Louis, telling him that this would be a mistake that they would greatly regret. Louis heeds no warning and just begs Lestat to go through with it. And Lestat, just knowing just how important this is to Louis, knowing just what it would mean for him to disappear, he turns her, thus starting the sad reality of Claudia's existence. Claudia's existence is something that irks Lestat sometimes. He made her specifically for Louis. That is her purpose, to exist, to satisfy Louis and make him comfortable with being a vampire. She is an accessory to Louis. We've seen that time and time again when she wants to run away, when she wants to become her own person. Lestat brings her back and forces her back into this position of being their daughter, because that's the only reason that he made her. He treats her unfairly, treats her terribly, and of course that makes a growing resentment that Claudia has towards Lestat. That leads us to her attempting to murder him in every single iteration. But it doesn't really end right there either. This feeling of her being attached to the hip with Louis is something that even the vampires in France believe as well, because Armand and all the troupe over there, they don't give a rat's ass about Claudia in general. They treat her like she's nothing. They give her a play where she's made to represent Louis' brother. My Baby Loves Windows is a story about a girl that ends up falling to her death. Ring any bells right there? Even when she's trying to find solace with vampires that aren't her immediate family next to her, she ends up being in a similar situation where she just ends up being used all over again. Her entire existence is tied to the people around her, and she is very rarely seen as her own person until she attempts to find someone, which ends up being Madeleine, but we'll talk about that further down the line. Because we can talk about the different versions of Claudia that we see on screen. The first of which being the one that we get in the movie, with Kirsten Dunst's portrayal, which I think is probably the best part of the Interview with the Vampire movie. She fits that book interpretation of Claudia to a T. She is the classic doll-faced, childlike monster, like something that comes out of Chucky in terms of just how menacing and terrifying that she is, and she just completely blows it out of the water every time that she shows up on screen. She's fantastic. But in my opinion, I do definitely prefer Delaney Hayes and Bailey Bass's portrayals of Claudia as a whole, because we follow them for so much longer and we get so much more development on their behalf. Now, there are also two very different sides of Claudia, because Bailey Bass portrays a Claudia that is younger, a Claudia that is growing into this world, now being a vampire, learning the ropes as she's navigating being a vicious killer, and then finding out about these new emotions that she never knew that she had before. We see her loss, we see her traumas as they build. Delaney Hayes is the character that picks up where Bailey Bass has already gone. She's already gruff and tired of everything that has gone around her. She is barely holding on to that last glimpse of hope that there are other vampires that could be good. The only person that's really keeping her alive for a lot of the time is Louis. Or well, vice versa. She's the one that's keeping Louis alive, but still, they're navigating the world all by themselves, and all that trauma has made her a completely different person. When we're looking at the TV show, I like the interpretation that Delaney Hayes is the more accurate portrayal of Claudia, because when we're looking at the series at large, we follow a lot of themes when it comes to things like reality. What is the truth of the story that we're being told over here? And we see that there are holes and discrepancies in Louis' story, whether it be because his story was manipulated and fabricated by Armand, or it be because he's been hiding so much of his trauma that he's hidden a lot of what actually happened. Time after time, we follow his story and see that things don't always line up. So with the arrival of season 2, it would also make sense that now, after seeing through a lot of the BS, Louis's gotten a clearer picture on how he remembers Claudia to be, thus evoking the change in actresses to fit what actually went down. It's an interpretation that I've seen on forums like Reddit, and I think it fits the story narratively. It works. The other that I've seen is like how the TV show could be like a play, how characters can be shifted in and out to fit the needs of the story. That's why it says in the first episode of season 2 that the character of Claudia is now being played by Delaney Hayes. This is just what we're following along as we go through the story, and it fits what's going on. But moving on, the only really good times that Claudia had were probably the very first years when she was in Louisiana. And even then, I don't really know if you can call them good, because that was just her going around in a murder spree, going around terrorizing the citizens of Louisiana. That's probably something that she picked up the most from Lestat. Her love of the hunt, the thrill of the hunt, going forward and actually just mauling these people for the enjoyment of it. She loved it more than Louis and Lestat combined. I mean, she even collected body parts in her room to just keep as trophies, something that I guess other vampires don't do. Because if they did, Lestat wouldn't have been so bothered when he saw her do that. But that all started to come crashing down when Claudia realized that she could also feel things like love for other people. She's always seen Louis and Lestat being compassionate with each other, and after a certain number of years, of course, that's something that she realized she was missing from her own life. She is the third in this vampire couple, and she is a child, but she wants to have someone for herself. And once she finds this boy that she finds cute and charming, of course, she wants to see if she can make this thing work out. But in a very tragic way of things, she ends up hurting him in the worst way possible. I mean, she kills him on the spot once she finally starts to make a move. It's something that she can't control in the moment because her instinct is too fierce. It's too strong right there. The person that she has loved for so long right now ends up just dying in front of her because of an accident that just happened. It's nothing that she anticipated, and she couldn't control these emotions in the slightest. She brings him over to Louis and Lestat to see if they could save him, but then they say that this is something that she has to put up with because, well, this is her fault for not being able to regulate her emotions and regulate her natural instinct for wanting to kill. He was already dead when she brought him through the door. Begging won't make him come back to life. Her butting heads with Lestat is the prime definition of an abusive parent-daughter relationship right there. Lestat at every single turn is pretty much belittling her and making her feel lesser than. You might even be able to chalk that up to Lestat having a terrible upbringing in his own right with his father. But that's no reason to treat Claudia like shit. I mean, every single time that Claudia tries to escape, something negative ends up happening to her. Whether it be Lestat coming over and killing the people on the train, dragging Claudia back to Louis, or when Claudia does manage to escape, she's caught by one of the worst kinds of vampires that does unspeakable things to her. And I wouldn't really want to touch that topic too much. That trauma is something that stays with her. And the entire time, she always knows just how much she means to Louis. She knows that if she's gone, Louis is going to feel very much alone. And at the end of the day, she ends up having to be Louis's caretaker. Not to say that Claudia doesn't love Louis, because she absolutely does, but Louis is definitely someone that has a lot of baggage and has to be someone that seems like he has to be babysitted quite a lot. After that fight with Lestat, Claudia and Louis became closer than ever before. But just as she thought that she had a greater connection with Louis now than ever before, of course, he lets Lestat back in after that fight. Something that is a betrayal for Claudia every single time that he's reintroduced. That is a very common theme that we see with Claudia as a character. She is never chosen first by any of our characters. Every single time that she comes to that decision, she comes to a point where she wants to have someone for herself, they always have something hiding behind their back. One of the worst cases of this is when Louis and Claudia are on their way to Europe, and then Louis goes through his dialogue of you and me and you, while in the entire time he's seeing Lestat just off to the side, actually speaking to his ghost, so to speak. It's the sad truth of the situation that Claudia is second fiddle to everyone else in this world. She, at every single point when seeking solace in other vampires, is never taken for who she is. And I mean, that goes with her creation, because she, as an existence, as her being a child vampire, it goes against the vampire rules. Armand says that she's not gonna survive too long. So he instantly has it out for her, and he punishes her whenever she tries to lash out, as when she didn't want to participate in the play anymore, because again, she was gonna be forced to play in this role for decades. A role that subjected her to be a child the entire time. A reality that she's been trying to escape for her entire life at this point. Only for this troupe to say, well, this is the only use you have, to keep playing this little girl, the child that everyone wants you to be, the person that we know you want to grow out of. Everyone's perception of Claudia seems to be more important than how she wants to actually be. That is until she meets Madeleine. Probably the character that I feel like changed for the best when we're looking at the TV show. Because in every other interpretation, Madeleine is more of a motherly figure to Claudia. Someone that wants to take care of her because she lost her own daughter. So of course she wants to then treat Claudia as if she were her own. And it keeps her in that same realm of Claudia still being a little girl. I don't know, it still feels like there's some sort of weird imbalance there. Meanwhile, the TV show does something incredibly different in actually gradually building the relationship between Madeleine and Claudia. They are two social outcasts, and they at first bicker and fight, but then they find this genuine friendship with one another. And not only that, it gets so much closer than that. They become sisters. They become maybe a little bit more, or well, the potential of that is still on the table there. Madeleine is a character that understands Claudia, understands that she is not someone that is to be underestimated. Seeing Claudia's powers firsthand, she's not afraid of the vampire that Claudia truly is, and she also understands her in the manner of just being a girl that wants to just not be a child anymore. Madeleine is the only person that really overcomes that view of Claudia being a little girl, a child of sorts. And because of that, sees her as she truly is, and then truly decides to stay with her as a vampire. Finally, Claudia has someone that she can call her own. If the story ended here with Claudia and Madeleine, this would have been a happy ending of sorts. But of course, Claudia is the one character that doesn't get a happy ending. Her dread can't end here apparently, because this is when the trials start. On trial for the murder of Lestat being right then and there giving his side of the story. Now the thing is, he doesn't want to condemn Claudia to death, of course, because he also sees her as his daughter, just as Louis does. But Lestat only has enough power to save only one of them, and of course his one and only is Louis, showing us once again that Claudia is never gonna be picked first. At the end of the day, Claudia and Madeleine stand towards the light together as they both burn, and Claudia looks back at Lestat with a face that only a daughter can give to their father. It's a heartbreaking scene, and it just solidifies that Claudia never had peace at any point in time. She was always trapped in pretty much every sense of the world. She never asked to be born. She was given this dark gift by force. That movie line of giving you the choice that I never had was something that never applied to Claudia, because she was just a gift to be given. Someone that could never be their own individual. And I feel like in a series like Interview with the Vampire, that's even more tragic than you can really think, because this is a series about outcasts, the outliers in a society full of outliers. Vampires are the prime example of individuals. They are their own proper people. Lestat is the prime example of someone that is an anomaly. He has the charisma of 1,000 men, and he's able to do just so much. But when it comes to Claudia, she is suffocated at every single turn. Hope is something that she desperately latches onto, but it's something that she keeps losing grasp of. Even in Europe, when they were on their way to France, when she saw that vampire throw herself in the fire, that was something that just caused her to believe that there was nothing good out in the world. Claudia is a character that I feel is so well written when it comes to everything revolving around her. She's such an integral part to the entire universe of Interview with the Vampire that her loss, her death, is something that haunts the narrative after so many decades. Every facet of the story, whether it be Louis' relationship with Armand, Lestat, whoever it may be, it's all because of Claudia. She is probably the most important character in the entire franchise, and she's the one that doesn't even make it past the first book. All at the fault of Armand, of course. She was the catalyst for everything that we would be seeing on screen, and I'm so glad that we were able to follow her story as much as we did. The way that we were able to see her side of things because of the diaries was something that I truly, absolutely loved the series for doing. I mean, in pretty much every single version of Interview with the Vampire, we only see Louis' perspective the entire time as he's speaking with Daniel. That's the entire story. That's the interview with a vampire. But here, having Claudia's diaries being an actual tangible thing, it gives us an insight that a lot of other projects inside of the Vampire Chronicles never give us. It is a deep dive on her as a character, as we see her evolution of being a child to eventually finding herself trapped, to eventually thinking that she's gonna have some sort of release, and then her eventual sad death. And even in death, we see just how she is continuously manipulated to serve the purpose of someone else, as we see that her pages are ripped from her diaries to suit the story that Armand and Louis have constructed. So regardless of what we're looking at, no matter what iteration, even though we are still given the best glimpse into her world as we can, this is still hidden from us. Her story is never gonna be told in its fullest because that is something that was stolen from her. Her voice was stolen from these diaries. Even though, of course, being diaries, they were something that were never really expected to be read out loud. But even then, while she was alive, she still had Lestat pry into that personal life of hers by reading out loud her most inner thoughts. This girl truly never knew peace, and that is absolutely heartbreaking. And with that, I think that's the majority of what I had on my thoughts on Claudia in the series at large. With this, what do you guys think about Claudia being the most tragic character in the series? Of course, since I'm only familiar with the first book and I'm only familiar with the TV show, I'm not gonna be able to go into a deep dive about other characters that show up further on. So if there's a so-and-so that underwent so-and-so and then met so-and-so and had a terrible life, well, good on ya for knowing that, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So I'm gonna stick with this for what we know right now. I wanna keep making videos like this about the other characters in the Vampire Chronicles series, but I wanna know what you guys think. Is that something that you guys wanna see? I've also gone through the idea of maybe making a video about every single episode that we have in the series so far. So if you wanna see that too, hey, let me know down in the comments below. But as always, I was Randy, and I'll be seeing y'all next time. Peace.